The Art of Leadership Network.
Well, hey, leaders, welcome to the LeadCulture podcast. I'm your host, Jenni Catron, founder and CEO of the Foresight Group, where we cultivate healthy leaders who lead thriving teams. This podcast is for leaders who want more than good intentions. You want clarity, confidence, and practical tools to lead well in the real world. Each week, I'll help you navigate the challenges of leadership and culture with insights that you can actually put into practice. We'll explore what it takes to lead yourself well, because how you show up shapes everything, from your decisions to your team's health and momentum. My goal is to equip you to lead with purpose, strengthen your culture, and create environments where people and organizations flourish. You'll hear honest conversations, real stories, and proven frameworks, along with insights from leaders committed to doing the work of leading well. So whether you're leading a team, an organization, or growing as a leader, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. Friends, today I am joined by someone I have just grown to really respect and love connecting with. Heather Broeder is the Executive VP at Refined Technologies. And in her bio, it simply says, building culture, driving purpose, leading generosity, serving, artisan care, wholeness, leader development, formation, and fun. And as you hear those words, you're going to hear, as you hear from Heather, how much that just describes who she is, a leader who cares so much about her team, supporting them, leading them, developing them. And I love that the last word in that is fun. So Heather, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Your bio says it best. It says, servant leader committed to making an eternal impact through work that matters. So tell us more about you, why that's true, and let us learn a little bit more about who you are.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me, Jenni. I'm excited. I've loved learning from you and learning with you, and this has been a good journey to be on. My name is Heather Broeder, and I grew up in Houston, Texas. I got a mechanical engineering degree from Baylor University. And then I did that work in a traditional sense for about 7 years and then worked part-time while my kids were younger. And that gave me exposure to a lot of the support functions at an engineering business. And then I rolled back into a full-time capacity as my kids got a little bit older. And I got to really see the impact that culture had on teams as we were developing and rolling out initiatives. That's where I really got excited about engagement and learning and leader development. I followed a boss to Refined Technologies. I've been here for about 8 years doing all those things that you just mentioned. And so maybe personally, I'll share that I've been married almost 29 years to my high school sweetheart. I've got 2 college-age kids that go to Baylor, and they are a lot of fun. They'll be home blipping through Texas to go to the rodeo here in the
I love it.
It'll be great. And then maybe just to share a little bit about some of those words that I put out there. I love the phrase servant leader so much. It has always resonated with me because that is how Jesus led. And I'm so inspired by his example as a believer. And I think about the Philippians 2 passage that talks about considering others better than yourself. That is so convicting. That is so challenging. That's an aspirational statement, but servant leadership really captures that idea, I think. And then in terms of my LinkedIn profile, as you said that back to me, I've been processing that. I want to update that to say servant leader committed to creating environments where people grow, where people flourish, where they're just in this healthy environment. And that really comes down to culture, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I think fun, honestly, has a lot to do with culture. I think fun in meetings, fun in the hallways. We were made and designed for learning and laughter. And I'm not sure you can have a healthy, thriving culture without fun.
That's so good. That's so well said. And I love your perspective on, just even that Philippians 2, viewing others as more highly than yourselves. I think sometimes as Christians, we know those things, we know those scriptures. We talk about that all the time. But a lot of times we don't make the connection to our work. And so whenever I get the privilege of connecting with leaders like you who are like, that's not disconnected, my book, 4 Dimensions of Extraordinary Leadership, is rooted in the great commandment of love God and love others. And that was the aha moment for me as a leader, is like, well, my leadership life shouldn't look any different than my everyday life of loving God and loving others. That's where it ought to come from. So then how does that look in the work environment? And I think I love that, again, when I read your LinkedIn bio, I was like, servant leader committed to making an internal impact through work that matters. And I love that your background, tell me again what your degree was in.
I went to Baylor wanting to be a nurse, and then I was intercepted and ended up getting my mechanical engineering degree. And that's a great story for a whole nother podcast. But I love having a technical background, and I loved that season of doing technical work. I love the collaboration that you need to take on a huge, capital project with design and engineering. So God certainly knew me and the road he was going to take me on. But if you had asked, young Heather what she was going to do when she grew up, she wouldn't have said she was going to have a little 7-year journey of offshore engineering work for sure.
Well, I was going to say, and this is what I love so much, because I think a lot of times people assume great culture leaders are the people who got their HR degree and that they've been, people centric their entire career. But I so often find leaders like you who are like mechanical engineering I have kind of a similar story in that I'm like, I was marketing and brand development. Like, who knew I would become the culture girl? But I love it when leaders in all different types of roles really get that people are the point, right? Like at the end of the day, the people that we lead and we serve is really core to whatever type of business we do. Tell us a little bit more about Refined Technologies, just so people can get a picture of what your everyday work world looks like.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for letting me share, because I'm really proud of Refined Technologies. We're almost 25 years old. We're about to celebrate our anniversary coming up here in a month. But Refined Technologies is a service provider in the oil and gas industry. And we are in process facilities, primarily supporting turnaround events. And so those are these critical windows when plants shut down for planned maintenance. So our job is to make sure that those facilities are fully prepared, ready for maintenance. So we bring patented chemistry, mechanical rental equipment, talented technical people, and we come in and decontaminate and prepare units. And we do that safely and predictably. And the people that do that I was talking about, those talented technical professionals, we actually call them artisans. All of our employees are as artisans. And, that language is really intentional because we believe that our work is a craft and it requires expertise, passion, and ownership. And also we feel like there's a calling, like people are bringing their God-given gifts to really complex environments and executing with excellence. So that's where we've grown from. And then just recently, about a year ago, we launched a new business line that operates outside the turnaround window. And that is making sure that our clients have specialty chemicals and support during their normal operations. And Jenni, I'm excited to talk about that expansion because it really moves us from being in the turnaround space to being everywhere that our clients are working. So we can be even more holistic in creating value for them, but also creating more opportunity for artisans. So Refined Technologies is definitely a growth company. We've been on a growth journey, steady paced growth, and that growth is really purposeful because as the company grows, we've got more and more opportunities for artisans. And then as artisans grow, they're having more and more ideas about how to create value. So it's just that virtuous cycle.
I love that so much. And what I'm listening to you, and I'm sure most of the listeners are like, I don't understand half of what you actually do, but you did a really, really good job of giving us a clue and helping explain it to those of us who are nowhere near that industry. But what was so fantastic to hear you talk about this is just your intentionality, even using the word artisan. You put such value into your team members that it's no, we're not just doing this technical work. You're actually experts. You are skilled. You are doing incredibly important work. And so even the framing of that, you've raised the bar. I bet, if I were to guess what some of the environments of your competitors look like. The culture you've created has raised the bar for the value and the integrity and the significance of the work that they do. And this is why I'm so passionate about culture and employee care and engagement, because all of us are in different places with different skills. And, and some people are in jobs that's the job that is the opportunity for them. But for them to feel valued and significant in that work is just extraordinary. And that's the opportunity we have as leaders, is to create a place that is saying, this is meaningful, this is valuable, what you do is extraordinary. And then I love how you're talking about, even with your expansion, that flywheel of your artisans are able to continue to grow with the company. Just that perspective of that you're thinking about it from that lens is so valuable.
Well,
so valuable.
Things like naming your employees, it's like giving that shared identity. Like, I'm proud to be an artisan, and we're artisans together. And what does it mean to be an artisan? And so it's fun to be on a journey where you have really a shared language, a shared identity. Like, you're an insider, you're one of us. And so it's been an exciting journey to be on, for sure.
That's so good. Well, culture is literally at the top of your website. Like, before our interview, and I've been on your website other times when we've connected for other things, but I popped back on the website. I'm like, it's literally in the top line, so give us more of the backstory. Why does this matter so much? What was the history on really shaping a culture and an environment like you guys have at Refined Technologies?
Yeah, I really want to honor our founder and our owner and just their passion for culture and just how that flows and permeates in everything. And when you think about differentiators, we would say culture is our differentiator. And I think the industry that we work in, it's really intense. Turnarounds are very high stakes. I mean, safety, timing, regulations, all of these things matter. And it's a very demanding environment. And if we're not really clear and committed to culture, then the potential is that our industry culture will just pull us along in its current, and that we'll just drift along and become assimilated to the culture that we're operating in. So
that's such a good call out. I just have to highlight that because every person in every industry can feel that to some degree. Sorry to interrupt you, but like, that's such a big deal.
No, I agree. And you can just feel those demands kind of bringing you to a sameness. And we're trying to say, hey, no, we've actually got a very different culture. So we've got to be radical about that to kind of pull against the macro culture that we're operating in.
So good.
Because we are a growth organization, we also have this opportunity to grow our culture stronger and stronger, that the growth doesn't compromise or dilute it, but the growth is actually like empowering this cultural flywheel. So culture is our guardrail, culture is our differentiator. And so every day we can either build a positive, energizing culture where people show up excited about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it, or we can not work on culture. And so, we always talk about culture on the website, on the walls, but that's actually not what culture is. Culture is really what happens in the hallway. Like how you feel when you're a meeting. And that meeting could be 90 people on a virtual call. It could be 8 people in real life in a room. But what do people do? Do they use people's names? Are they patient when someone makes a mistake or when someone's new? Do we laugh in meetings? Do we step up and offer help, or do we wait to be asked? Are people placing blame? Are they taking ownership? Are they giving excuses, or are they like mining for the real issues? And all of that is culture, and all of that has to be something that your leaders and every team member is really committed to. Like, what is the culture? What is the culture that we desire? And really talking about it and being focused on it every day.
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah. And I love that you just rattled off some of those things, because it's the everyday behaviors. It's the micro moments and interactions that, and what we're doing as leaders is we're always trying to help coach and frame those or create those environments. I'm curious, this is a little bit of a tangent, Heather, but like, I'm curious, was there a point in the company's journey that it was like most of that was just understood and expected because it was small? And then was there a place where you guys had to get more deliberate and create rhythms or systems that began to reinforce that culture?
I think so. I think when everybody fits around a room, it's easy to feel like we're all on the same page. And that original founder is speaking into things constantly. There's that direct coaching, and the culture feels really tight and aligned. And then with growth, those responsibilities of leading culture go to more and more people. And so about a year or so before I came to Refined Technologies, there was a pretty big undertaking of what does this mission statement mean? And so while that had been verbalized many, many times, it was like, you know what? Let's write this down. Let's write this down. And then in defining those things, people are equipped to use common language to tell the stories. And so that really is important work to do once the team can't all assemble in the same room anymore.
Yeah. And I threw that extra in there for you especially because of the growth curve you guys have been on, being a 25-year-old company. That's often what I see is that in those early days, especially when a leader just has good instincts around culture, like it's a high value, they're just setting the tone and creating that environment typically pretty organically, right? Like, because it's just who they are. It's the overflow of who they are. And then you get to those growth inflection points where it's like, oh, wait, time out. And I love the language you use because it's so the LeadCulture framework. But, you said we've got to really define this. What does this really mean? And that's where I often see the break points for a lot of companies and a lot of organizations is they just assume everybody still gets it, but it's too big for everybody to just get it. We have to actually get really clear about who are we? How do we work together? What are those things that define how we want to operate as we move forward? So I didn't know the answer to that question. So that was truly a curiosity, but it doesn't surprise me given how strong and clear your culture is in your company.
Well, and I love your encouragement in the book to spend the time getting that clarity, because those definition conversations about what we do or don't mean are clarifying even for a group of people who already feel aligned. But sometimes one word, one phrase, this is a better story than that to exemplify it. It can really help just align everyone and equip for future storytelling. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so good. So good. I love that. Well, tell us a little bit more about some of the rhythms or systems that reinforce your culture now. Some of the things you guys are doing. I love these stories. So I'm kind of giddy for you to share.
Yes, I think we've got a good variety and we've got a lot invested. And so this is going to cover a broad range. But in terms of leader development, we have a lot of different things we do, but I'll unpack like one specific program. We have something called Imprint, where we take a cohort of leaders on a year-long leadership journey. And really, we start with wholeness. And leaders explore their personal story. They examine and share how it shapes their leadership lens. That commitment to really unpack wholeness is to make sure that we have healthy leaders to lead healthy teams, but also so they can, cascade their learnings through the organization. We also do a deep dive on a collection of books where those are the ideas and frameworks. That's the vocabulary that's really become our organizational language. And so we're essentially imprinting leaders with the RTI DNA. So we spend a lot of time talking about people, connection, communication. And then, of course, we also dive into very practical learning topics like P&L reporting or recruiting expectations or how we're going to navigate conflict. And so Imprint would be one of those pillars in culture building. We also have an annual event called our Summit, and we bring all of our artisans together from all over the world. And we also bring a contingent of clients that we really view as strategic long-term partners.
Oh, I love that.
We're there to celebrate. We are working on alignment. We're there to learn. And it's not just a meeting. I mean, it's like cultural renewal. Like we have fun together. We get inspired together. We always have a focus on one of our nonprofit partners. And so we're reminding artisans that, hey, your work is really valuable because we're creating value. Your work is really valuable because we're creating livelihoods for families. But also your work is really valuable because we're able to fund a lot of amazing philanthropic work. And so Summit, I would say, would be another pillar. And then maybe a couple more that I'll mention. We've got an enduring partnership with World Vision. And the growth that we experience, the profits that we earn allow us to give money to World Vision to bring clean water to families just like ours in Honduras and to also sponsor children through their sponsorship program. We've got about 330 artisans sponsoring over 730 children in Honduras. That creates so much purpose. And RTI is not just giving financially, we're also driving engagement. So we've taken over 17 vision trips to Honduras, and we've brought over 100 artisans to meet their sponsored child, see that water work up close and personal. And so that's been an amazing culture pillar. And then I also just want to recognize like having a culture of celebration. So we have annual artisan awards, we have monthly people stories, we have daily shout outs. Like all of these are different rhythms to just make sure we're constantly celebrating people. People do amazing things inside and outside of work. So there's just a lot to cheer on and recognize. And so what you celebrate becomes contagious. And so that's been a really beautiful part of our culture too.
Gosh. Oh my goodness. There's so much there. And and everybody's probably been doing the math, because as you were rattling those things off, that imprint program, I mean, first of all, the intentionality to care about the whole person. Like I've heard that in your language multiple times, even if I'm not restating it exactly right, but that care for the whole person and wanting them to have that great self-leadership, great self-awareness, equipping them to know who they are in their story. Healthy leaders lead healthy teams, like just embodying that. There's a commitment of time and resources that, of course, the summit is massive. I've heard you talk about it. That's no small investment. I know that you guys are investing significantly to pull that off. How many artisans do you have right now?
Over 700.
Over 700, right? So she's talking about over 700 artisans, their team, plus some clients. Like that's a massive event to pull off. And again, not inexpensive. Then your World Vision partnership, actually taking people to the field and doing serving trips. Like that's a massive investment, Heather. Like, have you guys ever questioned, is this worth it? Or can we really afford this? Like, I'm sure that's what some leaders are thinking as they hear this. How do you invest that much into these types of programs? Again, I've thrown a curveball at you. Can you respond to that?
I think we mostly marvel at the generosity of our owner, and we feel really, really grateful to be in a place that's committed to connection. Because all of those things we've talked about are really about people gathering and having meaningful moments, whether it's going to Honduras, going to the summit together and learning from an incredible speaker, or taking an imprint trip and taking time off of work to do a deep dive on the whole you. And so all of those are about investing in connection and depth of relationship. I think our owner is so committed to relationships being the foundation of culture. And so wanting there to be trust and relationship and connection and just this value of gathering, we do not take that for granted. We're so thankful. I'm sure that there are times when our performance and our bonuses aren't as high as other years. And that might cause an artisan to say, wow, we sure did spend a lot on the summit, or I wonder how much this cost. I'm sure that crosses minds, because that's just our humanity to kind of wonder and question. But at the same time, I think we all collectively, when we zoom out, we recognize, man, we've got a powerful culture because we create time for it and we put dollars behind it. And so that budget really demonstrates a belief that our owner and our leaders have. And this is a long-term investment in our people growing and our people being connected and our people being excited about coming to work.
Oh, and that's the part that's immeasurable. And I know we'll talk about this here a little bit more, but so, there are some parts of culture we can actually measure and quantify. And then there are parts of it that we can't, but we just know, and I bet, and we didn't prep for this, but like my suspicion is that if we compared your company to a competitor, your retention, those numbers have got to just be radically different in the type of industry that you're in.
Retention is really remarkable. I think we've remained like at single digits the entire time that I've been here, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so that's one measurement, certainly. And I think just positive impact, like measuring things besides finances, but like what is our impact to the local and global community? And what is our impact on seeing artisans growing? Last year, we had over 100 artisans move to new roles. So moving into like a promotion or a transfer into another group. Like that's amazing. An incredible metric of people being ready and excited to help support our growth, which has been phenomenal.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, that internal development and then the loyalty that creates and the institutional knowledge that's kept and carried forward. I mean, that's the stuff that doesn't hit the P&L directly, but it does indirectly. And it's
And I'll
remarkable.
say our NPS is really high too. Like our clients experience our culture. They experience really, like, one of our core behaviors is lead with empathy. Another one of our core behaviors is exhibit enthusiasm. The last one is display a servant's heart. When our clients experience that, they have an amazing, like, they didn't just get the results they wanted. They also loved how it felt, achieving their goals. And so that's worth a lot as well.
Yeah. So great. So good. Okay. You also take a kind of a unique approach to hiring. So I'd love for you to just talk a bit about your approach to hiring.
Yeah, we are radically focused on bringing in the right folks that are going to be culture builders. And so it's much more than competency. We're absolutely looking for passionate culture builders. So we put a lot of time and effort into hiring. And then something that I love talking about is second chance hiring, which has just been a very unique labor pool. So if that's a new phrase for you, second chance hiring is about creating opportunities for folks who were recently incarcerated and have just been released. And we're not advocating that everyone goes off and meets the bus stop and just employs everyone, but really looking for those nonprofit partners that can provide some stability and accountability and support. We've got a nonprofit partner or two that we work with in this space. And so 80% of our team that's maintaining our mechanical rental fleet, they are second chance hires. And they've
love that.
Really added so much to our culture. They remind us of the joy of work. They have so much gratitude for things we take for granted, like vacation or having waters in the refrigerator. And so some people might feel like, wow, second chance hiring, like, is that draining your culture? Like, are you taking too big of a risk? And I would just say, hey, there are risks associated with it. There are heartbreaking stories, but 9 out of 10 of the stories are super inspiring. And this has really invigorated our culture in a tremendous way. I mean, it's a win-win-win when you have a business need that intersects with a societal need, a social justice.
That's amazing.
And so it's a win for folks who have a job and it's reducing recidivism. It's a win for the community that more people have, good employment. It's a win for us to have stronger retention than we did with the hourly turnover we had before we went to this creative labor pool. And it's a win for our culture because help people develop is the second line item in our mission statement. And this is a fantastic way that we are supporting development as people are reconciling with their family, getting a driver's license, going back to school, like hitting all kinds of milestones. And we're just getting to cheer them on and excited about what we're learning from them as well.
That's so powerful. And I realize it probably does come with some challenges occasionally, but hearing you talk about it, and again, the impact that you're making, the perspective of the impact in the community, the impact on those individuals. I love even just the awareness of, hey, the rest of the artisans and our team, like how, like the awareness of the appreciation for, because they're, these second chance hirers are coming from a different experience.
Absolutely.
And so they have fresh eyes and perspective on what has become common for many of the team as well.
One story that I love to tell again and again, because it just arrested me, but I was visiting with one of our second chance hires and we were just talking about the weekend. And he said, well, I'm actually taking off Friday and I'm going fishing. And I said, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you. And he said, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm taking off Friday and I'm going fishing and I'm still going to be able to buy my groceries. Because vacation wasn't something that he took for granted the way I'm thinking I deserve vacation.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a wonderful privilege to have vacation. And so it just reframed for me. The next time I went on vacation, it was like, I'm still getting paid and I'm not at work right now. This is amazing.
Right? That's fantastic. That's
really
so great.
It was a reset for me.
So good. Okay. So let's talk about, where have the challenges been? Has it been challenging to prioritize culture? Like, how do you keep fighting for this? Because like every other business, the whirlwind of the activities, the responsibilities, the expenses, talk about how maybe where it's been challenging for you guys and how you keep fighting to prioritize culture.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts on this topic. One, I feel encouraged that I'm in an organization where the leaders we've recruited have a lot of passion for culture. And so they are thinking about it, and it's very integrated into their mindset, which is amazing. And at the same time, culture work doesn't always scream for attention the way that closing the next job or increasing profitability and some of those, like, those things feel really urgent. And so we can definitely just look at the year and think about, hey man, when we're growing, we are really focused on execution, and we are talking about execution. And then when things feel softer and like harder to reach those financial targets, we can find the conversation shifting to cost control or innovation. And so sometimes we lose the culture conversation because it feels like it's not as urgent. And so that is a real challenge that I want to acknowledge. I think what's helpful is, like I said, leaders who just, it's sort of inherent that they're committed and excited about it. We like to remind ourselves too that culture building can also be free. It doesn't always have to be the stuff. And so
good.
Handwritten notes are free. Having a meeting where there's a radically clear agenda and positive vibes, and people are throwing, memes in the chat, and we're having fun together, and there's this tone of celebration and encouragement.
So good.
That is free. And that can just always be what we're striving for. And so even in times where we may feel like we're having to throttle back some of the investing things, that's okay. It doesn't mean that we can't still have those same hallway interactions where that really is the culture, whether we have a big family bash or a scaled back family bash. It's the
really
fact that we are gathering and we want to know each other's families and we want to get together. I think a challenge in culture work, especially in an environment where people are really friendly and positive, like at Refined Technologies, is just not calling out wrong behaviors in the moment. And may not even be because of avoiding conflict. It may truly just be like, we're really feel busy right now. Like I'm focused on this business goal. I've got to get something to the client, or I've got to get this email that has to go out. And so you let some things go by.
Slide.
There was an email with some like passive aggressive tones in it, or maybe in a meeting, it felt like someone was kind of like placing blame versus like taking ownership. And those are really the moments where you have a strong culture and a healthy culture when someone is brave enough to call that out and hold up that mirror in love and say, this is happening. Like, this isn't who we want to be. That just shows how much people care about living into the mission statement, living into those aspirational ideals. And so I hope that we are building an environment where people feel comfortable and people feel supported in identifying is culture drifting, because it really takes everybody working together to make sure that our culture is moving in a healthy direction all the time, no matter how busy we are.
Yes. And I love, you called out just some really important things there, that first of all, there's so much we can do that's free. So even in those seasons that are tough or lean, it's those behaviors, it's those little activities and how we show up for each other. So you gave such good examples there. And then I love also, because any good culture also has those tense or hard moments where it's like, oh, that was not us at our best. And are we willing to actually name it and call it out and have that moment of discomfort? Because ultimately that's what continues to make us better. We let those things slide and slide and slide, and eventually we slide into a culture we don't recognize or aren't proud of anymore. So I love that, because we're hearing so much good about the culture you guys have built and you've shaped and have invested in. And yet there are the best cultures know how to engage the hard moments, and that not everything is perfect. And there are those points where we have to go, oh, we've got to course correct. This wasn't us at our best. So just really appreciated you calling out some of those things.
Well, and to see the health of a leader when someone calls them out and they say, thank you for correcting me, or thank you for that feedback, or thanks for sharing your perspective. I can see where that really wasn't in line, or that wasn't, the intent. Those leaders who keep the door open for feedback and challenge, and who invite people to be culture builders in those difficult moments, like that's the mark of some really incredibly healthy leaders. I'm thankful we've got many of them at Refined Technologies who recognize, man, we all need one another's perspectives to really see what's happening.
That's so big. That's so big. Yes, that's such a win. And I think especially for senior leadership to acknowledge that when you have leaders that can receive that and respond appropriately and like model that that's actually good and accepted, that's such a monster win organizationally. Such a win.
And even if people don't have the right response, the best response initially, to look back, hey, I had more time to think about it. I reflected on that conversation. I want to apologize for being defensive. Like, those are beautiful moments. Those are culture building moments.
For sure. And sometimes some of the best culture building moments, right? So good. Okay, we hit on this a little earlier, but I want to give you able to respond to it more deliberately. How have you seen culture impact the bottom line? Because again, this is one of the things that every leader's wrestling with. Or like, I get it, it matters, we should do it. But sometimes it's hard. And we'll get the question a lot from people that are in like our LeadCulture network. And they're saying, how do I lead up? How do I help my leaders see the value of this? So kind of speak to the bottom line and the long-term impact of culture that you guys have seen.
Yeah, the nature of our work, the way that we are serving clients, we will find ourselves in many squeezy situations is what I'll call them, where it's like it's Saturday morning, we've got to get a pump to site, or, it's the middle of the night and we need an answer on something. And to me, those are the places where I have seen our culture impact the bottom line, because people are going above and beyond. They are going the distance to help one another out. And it really is like stacking hands, meeting mission, caring for one another. And you do that because you love your shared purpose. You love your like shared commitment and goals, and you're just not going to let each other down. So that teamwork has been overwhelming to witness, not on one team or another team, but across teams. That's been incredible. I think there's tangible benefit in that low retention that we talked about. I think the investment in things like Imprint, where self-awareness is increasing, connection and across cross-functional leaders is increasing. That's absolutely affected our bottom line of leaders who know each other and trust each other and can help one another, pick up the phone and phone a friend. Taking artisans on vision trips, just increasing gratitude, increasing engagement, bringing meaning to their work. They'll never look at, a proposal again if that's what they crank out every day without thinking, man, I know ultimately behind this proposal is also like families in Honduras being impacted. Like, that's huge. Right. And I think just our commitments to culture lower the friction that we feel. And friction is expensive. You can think about it like
so well said.
Drama tax. Sometimes you go to leader development conferences and they'll talk about the drama tax. When we have healthy environments where we surface the conflict and we have the hard conversations and we give and receive feedback and we celebrate and appreciate one another, we can reduce that drama tax. And that hits the bottom line. It absolutely does. And so culture is about like a really incredible flywheel of like that. Artisans are growing, our performance is improving, our performance is driving our company growth. And it's just round and round and round about creating opportunities in both directions, which has been pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, and this is the thing that it's like for the leader who's skeptical because they've not experienced it, it breaks my heart, because you and I have both been in environments where we've seen that flywheel effect of like, okay, when you create a great culture and the impact that has on the team, their engagement, which impacts our ability to do the mission and impacts our growth. And it's like, it does just create that flywheel effect. But in some ways, it's like to the leader who's listening, who's like, gosh, I want to believe that, but I've not seen it. It's like, just try us, right? Like, because it really is remarkable. And the data does bear it out. Like, you can look at the research that all of the metrics go up when cultures are stronger, from productivity to profitability, engagement, turnover goes down, like all of those things go the right direction, the stronger your culture is. But it is a long tail. Like it is also like, to get that flywheel effect takes time. And so there's a bit of one of the phrases we use a lot in the framework is patience and persistence, that there's just a patience required to consistently reinforce the culture you're aspiring to. But that compounded impact over time is just exponential. So Heather, here's a question for you. Do you want to respond to that? Sorry, I was going to.
Well, I was just thinking as you were talking about the skeptical listener, I was thinking about two very different words, respect and passion. And we can have a very respectful environment where we respect one another and we get our work done and we go home at the end of the day. Or we could have an environment where there's just a lot of passion, like for one another, for the work, for the brand, for the clients. And so do we want people to work with passion or do we want people to work with respect? Because I feel like a respectful deliverable, it kind of like meets the expectation versus like passion, like exceeds expectation. It inspires other people to do excellent work. And so I think a lot of skeptical listeners, it's like, hey, I know what good culture is. It's like having this great environment that everyone is respectful. And that is good, but that is a minimum. And it also gets the minimum out of people.
Yeah,
and
that's
I just
good.
would invite people to dip their big toe into a passionate environment and see how different the deliverable and the interactions and the service levels are when people are passionate versus just operating with respect.
That's well said. So well said. Okay, so for the leader who hasn't prioritized culture, there's going to folks that are listening. They're like, gosh, I know it matters. I know we should be doing it. Where do you think they should begin? How would you coach them?
I did not plan to say this, but honestly, Jenni, I am going to say they should do the things that are in your book because you always talk about like start with clarity and get a plan together. So really, like, have you captured what you hope to be true? Have you unpacked what your values mean? Have you unpacked what your mission statement says? I would just start with clarity and get alignment on the leadership of this is what we mean. This is the kind of culture that we want to have. And then make sure leaders are modeling it. Make sure leaders are held accountable for that. I would begin there. And then I would make sure your hiring processes are so aligned with that desired culture. Are we hiring people that bring in these behaviors and these mindsets and these commitments? Because we want to make sure we're hiring culture builders. And then I would just say, you get to town on celebrating it. When you see people living out those elements that make a culture great, you celebrate it, whether it's tiny things, big things. Celebrate with a cup of coffee, celebrate with just calling it out in a meeting, because I think the more you're talking about it and naming it, the more other folks know, oh, this is it. I'm in a sweet spot. This is what culture building looks like.
Yeah. Well done. Well said. Well said. So good. Okay. Heather, I know that so many listeners have just been, first of all, inspired by hearing what you're doing and how you're leading through it at Refined Technologies. And I know you're the first to say it's a whole team, but I know that you've been a champion and a leader for this work. So thank you for just your heart and commitment around that. Of really, I talk a lot about the sacred work of leadership, that we get to change and affect the lives of the people that we lead. And there's such a beautiful, sacred stewardship to that work. And you model that so well. Like every time I get to connect with you, I'm just so inspired and so grateful. And I know a lot of our listeners are as well. So just final thoughts or just encouragement that you would share with us before we wrap up today.
I think, Jenni, you keyed on it a little bit ago, just acknowledging that this work is not going to result in immediate, metrics. Like, you're not going to move the company dashboard the first year that you do an imprint program. But are you taking that long-term view? And are you planting these seeds that are going to grow really good things in your organization? And are you being like just radical about pulling those weeds? And so I think taking that long-term view is really important, and not looking for immediate results, and recognizing that some of the most powerful things that happen are going to be a little bit intangible, and they're going to have like indirect impact. And that's okay. Mm-hmm. So I think recognizing and naming that it's difficult to measure direct cultural things. And there's lots of things to measure. We should. There's organizations that help you do that. I mean, surveys are valuable. There's lots of things in that space. So I don't want to be slopey shouldered like you can't measure culture. It's just that it's a difficult science of its own. Yeah. And I think just the other thought is that culture is something that we do together. And so talking and dreaming together, praying together, celebrating together, the more we name and share stories and retell those stories, it makes us all proud to be a part of those stories, whether they're about our team or about a whole nother team. But I think storytelling is something we all go, yes, that's a really good thing to do. But it really is powerful to capture those stories and, put them in other people's mouths, not just a leader or an owner's mouth. And so capturing the stories, sharing the stories, keeping a spirit of celebration, doing the work together. Leadership, like culture, reflects leadership. So if we're disappointed in the culture, we got to look at ourselves and say, what am I tolerating? What am I not addressing? And it's also exciting because if we don't like the culture in a room, we can change that. We can change the conversation and we can start describing more of how we want it to feel when we're together.
So well said. Heather, you are such a gift, I know, to the team that you get to lead and serve with every day. But thank you for investing in us today. I think you gave a lot of leaders a lot of hope for what this can look like when we commit to it and we do it well. And then also some practical ideas and things that we can do, whether we have a big budget or not. Like you just gave us a lot of things to say, hey, here's some things you can do. Because the beautiful thing is like, there are so many things that can impact culture. So just start, right? Just start somewhere, start doing some simple things that you can consistently do, and then keep building on that. That's one of the things I tell leaders all the time is like, we have a tendency to go, well, until I can do everything Heather's doing at Refined Technologies, then I'll start. And I know you're nodding and you're agreeing with me that actually just pick a couple things and keep building. Define well the culture you aspire to, and then keep living into that definition day by day.
Well, and the great news is we also don't have to have all the ideas. The people on our teams, they have amazing ideas about traditions. They have incredible ideas about celebration. They have better ideas about what's going to resonate with the team. And so just creating space for the conversation of what would it look like if we were to launch a monthly celebration rhythm? Like what would really resonate with our people? What would be fun? At a place I worked at originally, I spent 20 years at an engineering company. There was a specific project team that took this rubber chicken every time someone traveled. And it was such a fun thing that this rubber chicken was like photographed on offshore platforms, photographed at vendor fab yards, photographed at Dairy Queen. That doesn't cost anything. And it was a blast because it was like, hey, I need that rubber chicken in my suitcase. Hey, give me this rubber chicken. It was this silly, ridiculous thing that took on a life of its own for 3 years. I'm positive that wasn't one person's idea. It just was sort of a grassroots thing. Those are the ideas that really take off. So sorry to take us on a tangent about a rubber chicken, but I really think I love it. Picture of like the best of culture are just these really fun, beautiful, random things that take on a life of their own and represent like the ethos of that team. But Jenni, I also just want to thank you for the work that you're doing and for the usefulness of your book, how practical it is. I just think what a great thing for a leadership team, for a leadership team just to dive through and just make sure they're aligned on all of those topics and have a plan for culture. It's worth it.
So well said. Heather, thank you so much. This was so fun. Leaders, I know that you took lots of ideas, lots of inspiration away from this. Share it with your team. This is a great episode to share with your team and to say, hey, where could we start? What can we do next? What can we do that will continue to live into the culture we aspire to? Great episode to share. And we're so glad that you are with us, that you are a culture champion that is intentional about living out what it looks like to lead well, to lead a healthy team, which ultimately allows us all to achieve the mission. So keep leading well, friends, and we will see you next time.